Welcome to Unmasking African Truths by African Hidden Voices. African Hidden Voices is a research organization that aims to retrace the steps of African indigenous spiritual heroes and heroines. The governing laws in a majority of African countries tend to be misaligned with the spiritual, the traditional, and the cultural needs of the African people, and thus unwarranted claims are made against inkolo okanye inkolelo zabantu abamnyama. The government, the government always side with those organizations. Thus, namhlanje we want to explore okanye esifuna ukuhlukanisa the difference between sacrifice for spiritual purpose and animal cruelty. In 2007, EIOL, a newspaper online, released an article titled SPCA to charge Yengeni for animal cruelty. According to the article, the former chief whip, Tony Yengeni, was accused by the SPCA for animal cruelty, where he was accused of stabbing a bull before he killed it. The SPCA laid a claim against Mr. Yengeni, which they termed cruelty against animals. To assist me to unpack this topic, namhlanje I'm joined in studio by Imboni Ugogo, Dr. Uzulezwe Khatebe. Imboni is an African indigenous spiritual guide. Imboni is the founder and leader of the Revelation Spiritual Home. But before Imboni ingena to assist us on the topic, I'd like to share with you a study, a theta about sacrifice and what sacrifice means to the African people. Actually, there are two studies. As a study CT, sacrificial rituals underlie a variety of religious worldviews. For instance, the word for sacrifice among the Dongon people of the West Africa is bulu, to restore to life. So abantu abamnyama, to sacrifice means to restore to life. Any article that was done by eArchive and Public Culture titled "The Cow, a Bridge Between the Living and the Dead" says cows are approached for slaughter when there is a funeral. They function to appease the ancestors so they may welcome one of their own in their realm. The slaughtering of a funeral cow is intricately executed by a designated family member and member of society. They know the protocol to observe in order to appease this cow to sacrifice itself. One may not just take a cow and kill it without ritual. Therefore, you perform a ritual for the cow so it may facilitate ritual for the human and the ancestors. And you never kill a cow in front of other cows, as we have seen in these terrible slaughterhouses. The slaughtering of a cow is an occasion on its own. No part of a cow goes to waste. There is order and temporality in the handling of a cow from the moment it takes its last breath. Depending on the different cultures, specific organs are reserved for specific members of the family and the slaughterer. Mameli na umbukele makhaya njembe niva ukuthi in the African culture there is respect when handling an animal for slaughtering or for rituals. Tata, since the quality of inkolelo zethu, or rather the authenticity of our cultures is often questioned and undermined by abantu who say they are religiously enlightened and the woke gang, or abantu who are not Africans. What is umehluko between animal cruelty and slaughtering for spiritual purposes?
Yeah, asibingelele bonke abasibukele. Now, I think kumele siqale discussion lana by noting something. There will always be, up to when I don't know, but there will always be a conflict between your Western world, Western culture, and your African world and African culture. There always be a conflict. And let me tell you, nama viewers, ukuthi lo conflict leyo personally ngicabanga ukuthi ikhozwa yini? Ikhozwa because, you know, the Western world, they moved away from spirituality quicker, and they moved away from spirituality long time ago. Africa is in the process of moving away from spirituality. One can say it has moved. I'm saying it's still in a process because you still find abanye abantu still a little bit practicing it. But the Western worlds, remember, they moved away quicker. And once you move away from living in spirituality, automatically, number two is living through your intelligence. That's why yabona Western worlds, gabantu abaviewer things that are spiritual is myths and the folklores, you know, all these kind of things. And they rely on their mentality. They rely on their intelligence, but rely too much on the brain. And so, because of that, there will always be a conflict, because in the African context, yes, it damage seyenzekile ngoba they moved away, manje basusa thina. Unfortunately, many Africans as well now, you know, they are drifting away from spirituality. And this new generation, talk about Amagamati woke, now we are already talking about this new generation who are born in an Africa that has drifted away from spirituality. So, they're born in a, I'm giving it a term, a Euro-Africa. I'm giving it a term now, it's a Euro-Africa. So this new generation, bazalwa Euro-Africa, where born again about spirituality, it's simply abayas. They are born into the education system, which is westernized, everything is westernized, the culture is becoming westernized. Abazal babo, they moved away homelands, they grew up in the cities where everything is westernized. And so this new generation, this new millennium, minang babiza Euro-Africans. They are not Africans, they are Euro-Africans. And because of that, conflict will always be there, you know, until Africa restores itself and goes back to live through spirituality. Now, Omunye can look at me and say, yeah, ngiyakuzwa, but does not make sense. Are you saying that Africa would have then been uncivilized if, you know, your Western worlds did not come? That's utter nonsense. Civilization began in Africa, we know in Egypt. We don't have to talk more about that. But if you look at the civilization that happened in Egypt and in Africa, it was a civilization, AI mover, through African indigenous spirituality. Now the Western world, Mabefiga, they did not give us a civilization, but they brought us a civilization that had no spirituality. That was Eurocentric civilization. That's where the conflict becomes. Abanye abantu, Western people say, no, we gave you civilization. Other Africans say, you are lying, we had civilization. There are two civilizations that we are talking about. BET civilization began in Africa, and your Europes, your Western worlds adopted the civilization, but by westernized, you see, because they moved away from spirituality. They used their brain. That's where the problem is. So we are now living in the Eurocentric civilization, not in the Afrocentric civilization that incorporates ubuthina. And look at the Western worlds. Who is leading us in the world? Where do trends begin? Where do fashion begin? Where does laws begin? Everything begins in the Europe, Western countries. And we are not invited to it just everything pops out there, boom, it comes here. And I blame African leaders. I blame them a lot. Do these things suit us or not? You see? But again, who are our leaders? Bakhuliswe through your Eurocentric way, through your Eurocentric religions and cultures. And now they've become elitized in Africa. They themselves have become Euro-Africans. Not Africans, Euro-Africans. Now everything iyonakala. So I think with that context, then we can understand why kuzobaki conflict between animals, sacrifice of animals, because they moved away from spirituality. So Africans sabambelele ku spirituality sethu, including animals, sacrifice, certain rituals that needs to be done that will fall under a tradition. But remember, a tradition is birthed by spirituality. So within a tradition, you'll find elements of spirituality. So obviously, then you have groups like SPCA, who groups, of course, they're not going to agree with what we are doing, you know. But one can ask themselves another question. All humans, Europes, Africans, sonke, before we spilling plants and animals, etc. But again, because they moved away quicker, the civilization now they are giving rights. And if you look at these Western worlds, Bapai animals more rights than humans. You know, our African brothers and sisters, they are dying there in the sea. Bebalegela inklupeko Africa wars. And they are trying to go overseas, countries for a better living, and they are dying. you know, it's being looked at, but it does not supersede your climate change and animal rights and all these other rights. It's not given priority even by the media. Uyezwela nje lapho nalapho. Funeka ukungena inyana kancane ku Google and do some research to know what's happening. But your animal rights, climate change, siyidla lento every single day. And bona from Europe, they come here with flights. Business class, they're here. They're taking over our countries. Nobody gives a damn. Well, the truth of the matter is, it's exhausting. We know siphethwe by them. So that's where the conflict will be. Aba understand ukuthi animals senzani ngazo ne sacrifice, because baphila through the mind. And them isa kwa into ethi sacrifice kubo. What are you talking about? It does not exist. That's why they will always tell you it's just hard work, study and do hard work. That's what they tell us, because Abba believe in the spiritual dimension. You know, they don't believe in the intervention of the spiritual world to assist us with certain matters, not to appease the spiritual world. They don't. And above all, you look at even the religions about Pazon. You see, they don't tell us nothing about sacrifice except sacrificing gendlela yabo. That has nothing to do with spirituality. So, I think in this context, one can understand ukuthi vele these conflicts are going to continue. We are going to continue to be arrested now in the plung with our own courts, and sometimes even a black judge sitting there. And many of the judges are old. Yeah. Many of them, nama magistrates. With sometimes as boos, as a black person, you should understand the cultures. And you know, it's very strange. Because I have a brief idea of law, I ventured a bit in law. Traditional law is there. It's recognized. You can argue case yako with the traditional law, but again, what supersedes another? In terms of a law, it is there. But if you go deep, upegama cases that were supposed to be under a traditional law, you'll see at the end of the day, many of them Abantu lost those cases, because it's going to be your European-based laws, what they call Roman Dutch laws, common law in Roman Dutch law is phethe kakhulu in South Africa. Common law and Roman Dutch law, which are at the end going to supersede the indigenous law. You know, when the case goes, and then is a welangapha ukuthi okay, yeah, but you know, balance of scales, we are losing the case because akho evidence of lento yenzayo or noni. We know that. So the fact that we have indigenous laws is recognized in the law of South Africa. At the end of the day, we know ukuthi uzawuya kuphi. So I guess that impilo yethu for now, until we really just simply restore ourselves as abantu abamnyama and stop being Euro-Africa and go back to be Africa. We are currently living in Euro-Africa. This is Euro-Africa. I tell you, Euro-Africa. And many people now have become Euro-Africans.
Sibonga kakhulu tata. Mameli na umbukele emakhaya uzvele imboni ithethile. Ithi imboni, we have now turned into Euro-Africans. We are no longer the Africans that were, or rather the ancient Africans that existed in Africa. Mameli mbukele na emakhaya. Let us go back to our indigenous African indigenous spirituality. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do your second veki ezayo. Siyabonga. Africa,